The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, brought to you by our stable of sponsors as we move in, Michael Guerin, to the last month of this series. And what a 4 weeks we have ahead. We've got a Premier night at Addington Raceway this week off the back of some terrific racing at both of our feature venues last week.
Yeah, and as continues the theme of the season, Greg, in both codes, there's just barely a week goes by now without some major news. This week, Merlin, who was one of the favourites, or the actual futures favourite not that long ago for the Sire Stakes, sidelined, not major, but a hoof abscess. And every time we have a major race of some sort, Greg, something seems to be turning up. So that makes it Don't Stop Dreaming's Sire Stakes to lose at Addington. But I still think there's a way our viewers can make money out of the race.
All right, that means people need to stick with us for the entire hour as we'll have the hand-milking best bets at the back end of the program. But let's have a look at what's ahead for you. Yes, last week it was the Uncut Gems out of Addington Raceway, so we'll review those. Alexandra Park had some terrific trotting races, albeit in inclement weather last Thursday night. The Premier night action to preview from Addington. We'll go across the ditch with Garrards with a bit of Kiwi interest there, and those hand-milking best bets. But Addington Raceway from last week, Friday night, the Uncut Gems. Here's the first of those, and a brilliant front-running drive here by John Dunn on Dance Till Dawn. We'll hear from him post-race about this horse and also a little bit more about how well his wife and father, Jenna and Robert, are going in the Premiership. Let's get Matt Cross to bring them home and then hear from the winning driver, John Dunn.
It's Dance Till Dawn holding off Manhattan and Folklore. Dance Till Dawn takes them all the way. Dance Till Dawn a length and a half. Beat Manhattan and Folklore.
I reckon she deserved that.
Yeah, she definitely did, Greg. She's fronted up right from early 2-year-old against all the good of that age, and 3 and then 4. So yeah, we'll take that one.
The Newmans, Johnny Slack's involved in that one too, and a few others. So yeah, good reward for them. And these races are all about keeping these mares racing in the country.
That's right. Newman's a great, massive supporter of us, and as well as the others. So no, they deserve it. And like you say, hate to see them go elsewhere, offshore, or to the Broodmere paddock too soon. So we need these races are a really good incentive for them. There's a couple of more sprint races at Addington in the next month or so. So we'll stay around, hang around for them ones as well.
In the Brecon winning owners bars, the Newmans were saying how you've been at lengths to tell them that this mare's a sit and sprint type, but if you'd done that tonight, you would have handed up to one, if not two, of Bob Butts, and you would have been back in the field. Being in front, she seemed to be enjoying it.
Yeah, she sort of, I drove her quite hard, probably too hard as an early 2-year-old, and she sort of stuck to her guns in every race, and then probably what I did earlier on, sort of knocked her confidence a fraction at 3, and it's just going great races, and I had a good draw, and like you say, if I handed up to one, I was going to be 3 fence. So you know me, I hate being stuck on the fence, Greg. So I had to have a go.
Well, your stable's having a go. Let's just talk about the Premiership and where things are at the moment, because your dad and your wife are low flying.
Yeah, we're having a really good run. We've got lovely horses, sort of well placed, and we've sort of got ones that are putting their hand up, and then sort of the bigger races as well. So massive team effort though. Like, it's not just RJ and Jen. It's all the staff, and we're lucky, like, getting backed by the owners and with the nice horses. All
right, I know it's still relatively early in the season. We're only up to the 5th month, but can you keep the momentum going?
I actually think we can. Probably not as much as we've sort of come out of the gates running the first few months, but the ones coming through, we've got some really nice horses there that are going to do a job sort of going forward. So yeah, I'd like to say we can.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say that they can't, Michael Guerin. Emma Hintz and Brent Clark, also involved in Adesanya along with the Newmans. And she's been a good mare, this. She was 4th in the Oaks last December. She was placed at Group 1 level at 2, but she's only won 4 from 33. So this type of race is perfectly designed for her.
Yeah, and gate speed's crucial, Greg. I mean, so often in this grade they're so even. If you can get in front of horses, most of these type of horses can run a 55 or a 56, and it's really hard to come from back in the field. And we see it both on both sides of the Tasman now. Being on the front end of the field is so important in any race with any quality in it, that you have to think twice about backing horses who get back in the field. We'll see that even more so later on in the Don't Stop Dreaming Merlin race. With the whole diamond racing done stables thing, it's quite remarkable. It's only 4 or 5 years ago, people were just like vehement, like so adamant in this country, not everybody, but some people, that the All-Stars were stuffing racing. They will never be beaten. They're unbeatable. Nothing can possibly ever beat them, and they're going to cause all this havoc, and that's why we have so many short price favourites. That wasn't that long ago. And since then, the Duns have won 2 premierships, and of course, Team Telfer, which is now Telfer Cullen, won last year's premiership. So sometimes, Greg, it's funny when you look back on some of the biases many people can get when they see the same thing all the time. You realise that not many things last forever. The All-Stars are still an outstanding training operation, but there's a very good chance they're not going to win this year's premiership either. And nobody's out there complaining that Team Dun's too powerful. So maybe a little lesson for people there in the industry to the problems aren't always caused by some big boogeyman over in the corner.
No, some great runs in that race. Manhattan, very good. Folklore, outstanding, because that's not her go in life. And Kikarangi Blue, usual honest performance from her. Just on the premiership though, Michael, 59 is where Robert and Jenna sit at the moment. 35 Michael House, and also the Purdon combination of Mark and Nathan. And as I said with John then, it is early on in the season, but the way they're going and what you're likely to need to win the premiership, it's no surprise that they're $1.30 with the bookies at the moment.
Well, also the premiership's changed enormously, not just because of these 2 big stables, Diamond Racing and Telfer Cullen, coming on board, but the way the premiership shapes, because it's now become 3 mini seasons in one. We used to have the premiership, everybody's up and running in August and September, and then most of the racing's all done together, and by about May, probably the duels in June, people stopped really caring because the winter racing didn't tend to affect it that much, and it tended to be the dribs and drabs horses who were racing. Now we have a really intense period of premiership racing, because the premiership now starts smack bang in the middle of summer, where there's races almost every day. And then we get these big numbers coming up, and then very shortly they'll start to parry back. Because once we get through this carnival, and the Dun stable won't have ginormous numbers at the Auckland Carnival, either with the All-Stars, all of a sudden the premiership sort of goes into hiatus, Greg. Now, it's not going to be frenetically busy over June, July and August. There'll still be horses racing, but the All-Stars won't have many, and even Dun Racing will pull back a bit. So then the premiership reignites again around about September. So it's vastly different from what it used to be. You could of track it through the year, but a lot of the horses who are premiership horses who matter to the premiership, those 3, 4, 5 winners, they're going to go to bed now for 3 or 4 months and come back out the other side. And we're not seeing the 2 and 3-year-olds racing as extensively in the front end of the season, because they're waiting for the back end of the season. So the premiership's a vastly different looking animal, Greg, on pretty much every level than it was 5 and definitely 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Look, that was win number 200 as well, collectively for Robert and Jenna Dunn. Let's move on to the next of those Uncut Gems, and this was a dominant performance. First up for that stable, Mark and Nathan Purdon, Natalie Rasmussen in the bike. The name of this horse, Anything Goes, recently purchased, as we know, and this was a demolition job.
A place chance from Heisenberg, but off he strolls here. The good thing of the night, Anything Goes, is going to win it by a cricket pitch. Happy Place second, he's a sure thing third, close fourth.
What'd you make of your first steer on him?
He's a lovely horse, yeah. Nathan told me he really liked him, so he said, don't be unlucky, yeah, which is good. No, he just feels a lovely horse. I think they'll have a lot of fun with him. He just feels like he's so big and strong and so casual, but he just seems to it's so effortless. I really like him.
Home in 55.7, 27.2. First up for that stable. Moved from $100 into 17, then 17 into 15. Michael off the back of that. Plug still in. Natalie Rasmussen says she really likes him. The punters are really going to like him too, particularly in the build-up, and it sounds like he's going to stay in New Zealand towards the IRT New Zealand Cup.
Yeah, not often you see horses, Greg, who don't come out of age group 2 and 3-year-old racing, so the derbies basically, and you see them win and go, well, that's going to be an open class. That's just going to be an open class also, and he's one of those. That was as impressive a mid-grade performance. I know it was an Uncut Gems race and therefore a stronger race, as I've seen for quite some time. So over the course of what we do now in harness racing, you might get 2 a season. 2 horses emerge through the grades that are good enough to be genuine open class horses. He's one of them. I'm not saying he'll win a New Zealand Cup. I don't think he will at this stage because there's still a copy of that in a self-assured and no reason to think they won't be back next season. And of course, Don't Stop Dreaming, Merlin, all those type of horses ready to come through, Greg. And of course, Akuta, who's his own stablemate. But you can make a case he would very easily slot into a race by Grins type race as one of the top 10 horses in the country. So I've got no doubts he'll be a New Zealand Cup contender. And that's probably being around better horses, Greg, moving from Steve Dolan's to the All-Stars, around better horses. He can work with better horses, all those little tiny baby kinks that sometimes horses from smaller stables have get ironed out in a big stable because they've got no room for rubbish. They said, if the horses misbehave there, it's like, no, you do it our way, not we do it your way. Yeah. I think he's in for a really interesting preparation, and he would be a horse who I wouldn't be stunned if he turned up and won a Hannon or one of those decent races next season. Exactly how far he goes, I guess we'll all find out together.
Yep, exactly. Kenneth Jacobs and, of course, Mark Hanover and Gordon Banks, we know well. They sold Amazing Dream and purchased this horse, and both Natalie and Nathan were at length to say how good a job Steve Dolan had done with it. Happy Place, very good, and he's a sure thing. Excellent as well, and on the markers, though, beneficial when they're running home in those sort of times. A return to the winner's circle for Matua Tana this campaign. He gets wide on the track here in those famous colours of Paul Nairn. Just Downs, an ever-improving Paramount Empress who goes to the Heather Williams this week. But it was the big bloke, Matua Tana, taking out the final of our gems.
Eurocash leads, Paramount Empress, and Matua Tana comes over the top and I think got up. Matua Tana just to nail Paramount Empress and Eurocash.
Paul, that'd be a confidence-boosting win for the horse and trainer I'm picking.
Yes, nice to get things right. So,
Paul, he hasn't been an easy horse. Is it just a case of getting him right on the night? And when do you know that that's the right night?
Yeah. Well, when do we know it's the right night? That's a good one. He's given me a bit of confidence in his work. In the last 10 days, I've been very happy with him, and then also in the last 10 days I was a bit unhappy with him, so I just changed a bit of gear, put some leather under his front shoes and just hoped that made the difference, and I think it did. So I was a wee bit, wasn't overconfident coming in tonight. I was more hopeful than confident tonight.
He's come wide on the track too, which hasn't always been his modus, has it?
No, Jared said he was trotting very well and it, tracked up down the back and round the bend, and even at the finish he was trotting well, so that's good.
All right, yeah. So the big question is, what do you do with him now? Because there's a decent 2-mile race coming up in Auckland in a few weeks.
Yeah, that's what we'll have to consider. I've probably got some young ones going up there, so 2 mile wouldn't worry him, so they don't have those good races, they're not every week, so yeah, it might be worth a go.
What about this race, these Uncut Gems? They're really well placed for these types of horses, not only for a horse like him, but to get horses' confidence, but for nice money.
Yes, and like a horse like this, he's been a very good horse, and just, he probably hasn't, I think it's the biggest race he's won, obviously, so he deserves it, I think.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, great effort getting him back in the winner's circle, and good luck going north.
Thanks very much, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah, and we've got the Row Cup market there, Michael. $1.30, obviously, Muscle Mountain. He's a $17 chance, and you've got the likes of Oscar Bonavina at $7.50, and then out to $9, Love of the Port, Artie by the Hill, and Aldebaran Zeus, both at 15. He said to me off camera, Michael, I said, what's he like around the stables and that? He said, he's too big to argue with, which I found quite humorous.
He's a lovely big horse. You get a feeling his body betrays him, and I think maybe early his mind betrayed him, but not many horses that big, Greg, don't have some sort of soreness issues, the speed we race at today. And that's one reason why he's been able to run on the grass in the past, I think. Actually had his knees injected last week before that run, or a couple of weeks before the run, so that often helps. Always really important to look out for that information. It comes out often via the RIB. They'll tell you because trainers have to notify them, and that's always a good indicator for their next start. It'd be good to have him in the Row Cup because the Muscle Mountain domination is so enormous, and there's such a big gap to everybody else, headed by Oscar Bonavina, Greg, that a Paul-Nean trained horse at least adds lustre and intrigue to a Row Cup. People go, well, I know he can win a Row Cup, and he's probably a horse who, if he trotted away and got to the lead, which he probably wouldn't, but at least there's a potential there that he wouldn't hand up to Muscle Mountain. Because, Greg, the reality is it's just so hard to see anything beating Muscle Mountain that at least one horse turning up who could be an X factor makes it a little bit more interesting. So I hope he comes north, and Paul's record at Alexandra Park, I would say in the last 20 years, he might have campaigned here 15 times, and I reckon I can only think of about 2 campaigns where one of his horses didn't win a race or some serious money. Yep. So at some stage in the next couple of weeks, those famous caduceus colours will be winning a race at Alexandra Park or getting a Group 1 placing. Who knows? Could be Matua Tana.
Yeah, of course, the Ivy League's already achieved that, and he's got Tectonic and Confessional coming north too, so that'll certainly add to that carnival. And just on Five Wise Men, caught up with Amy Edmonds as to where he's at. He had a back leg issue, which he came back into work. He's been in the Water Walker today, so good news around Five Wise Men. Speaking of Alexandra Park, let's go back to the rather wet Thursday that it was last week. A couple of their features. Here was the Oaks and Walking on Sunshine. This is with What the Hill at Woodlands, and a complete domination here. The surprise of the race, of course, was High Energy getting beaten. Natalie Rasmussen pretty critical of her own drive, but the drive of Tony Hurley, excellent. Home in 28.5 on this track. Big win, of course, for Tom Baggery. His biggest win prior to that, Michael, was the Southland Oaks with Pressed for Time, but yeah, she was really good here, as was Virginia Clowes, who's done a good job since coming north in second.
Yeah, and Tom missed the race. He was down in Canterbury because his partner Bonnie is having a child. So I think that child may have arrived by now. I don't know the answer to that, but either way, congratulations for the impending new arrival. It's a pretty big week, winning the Northern Trotting Oaks and becoming a father again. Just on the race, I know High Energy was okay, but it wasn't like she was unlucky, got out at the top of the straight and flew home. She was just okay. And she's not the first horse breed to come to Alexandra Park and be okay compared with their Addington form. The way the winner went, blasting off the gate, 2.45, 3-year-old trotting filly in the wet. I think if High Energy settles in the 1-1, Greg, she still struggles to beat her. She was that good. I haven't seen a lot of her, but she was that good on the night. I struggle to see, once she settled 5 lengths off her, how High Energy beats her. I'm not saying High Energy won't improve, because over a very long period of time, you go back to La Cucaracha and Wagon Apollo, like genuinely great horses. So many horses come to Alexandra Park, Greg, and they're okay the first time,
yeah,
particularly the trotters, and significantly better the second time. But all honours with the winner. There was actually no excuses there.
No, and we've got the Derby coming up, of course, really looking forward to that, and those horses will be heading there. There's also packages available for both the Roy Purdon night on the 19th and Auckland Cup night on the 26th. So go to Alexandra Park, check them all out. There's still some tables available there. So, yep, support the club, because there's going to be some cracking racing over those 2 nights. Let's have a look at the Moonstone. this horse is a really nice type, isn't it, Michael? By Monkey Bones out of Landora's Jewel, beating another of the All-Stars runners, the High Step it is, in second position. But I know you've got a big rap on this horse.
Well, her win fresh up was enormous. Not often 2-year-old trotters gallop, which surprised Nikki Chilcott, regather themselves and then still want to win. Like, she chased really hard, like a good filly. So I wasn't surprised she won here. What surprised me was the fact that High Step started that tight a favourite, because this horse was so good on debut. Spoke to Nikki last night, so she's eligible for the Young Guns final, which is on the 19th. So this is a new thing, the Young Gun Trotters series, and well done to everybody for getting it off the ground. She'll go there, but then she's not eligible for the Harness Millions because she's a homebred, and she's not eligible for the Sire Stakes because by the time she was born, Monkey Bones was actually dead, and therefore wasn't nominated, or the payment fees weren't paid for the Sire Stakes. So she's really got nothing until the Aces race for the 2-year-old fillies, which is 100 grand at Addington first week of December. So again, talking about the Premiership, she'll race and then there'll be this huge break before she races again. And Nikki said something really prophetic last night. She said, look, I've got a really mature horse who looks like a 3-year-old colt. So I know why my horse is winning now. And we love her and think she's a really good horse in the making. But we're not sure that we're going to be the best horse in October, November and December because the others might catch up. I would suggest, Greg, they'll need to be awfully good to catch all the way up.
Yeah, absolutely they are. They will need to be, Michael. And just back to those packages, I think the top of the park's about 140 a night. And also on Auckland Cup night, the boys get paid are getting involved. There's a $60 option there for you. It includes a 2-course carvery and 2 or 3 drinks as well. So, yep, alexpark.co.nz. Check that out and get involved on those 2 nights. Short break for us. On the other side, a whole lot more information, including the build-up to this Premier night out of Addington Raceway on Friday night. And here she is, the marvel that is Sue Princess. Retired this week after a terrific career, netted 18 wins. Remarkable effort by this trotter. At times she was a real enigma for punters. Here's Samantha Otley driving her to her last win at Addington Raceway. She drove her for 13 of those 18 wins, beating Spider Moment on this occasion. Michael, she started 162 times, including one season. She started 51 times. I'm going to ask you, what did she earn every time she went to the races? Well, I'll tell you, I won't even ask you, mate. $1,295 every time she went to the races. She filled up fields at times when we absolutely needed her against the likes of Muscle Mountain. She finished 4th in a race recently, the Lamb and Haywood Classic, which led into the Trotting Championship. Sue Princess deserves her retirement, and for the punters that have backed her over the years, you would have had some fun, you would have had some heartache, but at times she paid great money as well.
Yeah, more like an Australian horse where they get them fit and they line them up week in, week out. And the good thing about those horses, Greg, you don't need to work them very hard because they're racing every week, so they keep themselves fit. It's mainly maintenance in between. But yeah, a lot of people complain about the handicapping system in this country and the rating system. I think she's a horse who's exploited it perfectly well. As you've said, she's raced in poor Sunday fields and won off 20 or 30, and she's raced in open class races. And she's moved up and down that system because she's had long periods of not being in her best form or not winning and not placing. So I think she's an archetypical horse who has used the rating and handicap system better than many of the horses around her. And one of the factors too that is, the more often you line them up, the more quickly you will go up or down the system, Greg. So one of the problems with the handicapping system is if we stick to our old ways, racing them once every 2 weeks for 3 months and getting our 6 starts out of them, you're not going to be able to go up and down very quickly.
No.
And that's what works in Australia, because in Australia, a lot of the horses in New South Wales will race Wednesday, Saturday if they need to, Wednesday, Saturday, every other Wednesday. Some weeks they have a hard run, some weeks they have a quiet run. Yep. And Sue Princess is a good example of that. She's the model for maybe how the model should work.
Yep, exactly. Won a first race for Lawrence McCormick, who owned with Derek Newton. Derek bought Lawrence out. Lawrence was building a house at the time. There's always a great story behind this sort of thing, and she went on and won 18 races, as we now know, and I think Derek gave the ownership to his sister to give her a bit of fun in life. So, yep, a wonderful story, and well done to Mark Jones. He certainly placed her beautifully. Right, Sire Stakes, Group 1 level, Addington Raceway on Friday night. The final heat was last week. Here is Don't Stop Dreaming, getting the business done. Of course, we've got Merlin coming wide. We now know that he's not in the final with that foot abscess. Sinbad, who I thought was excellent. We will hear from everyone, including Zach Butcher. Some of it not relevant to this week now, but you still need to hear what he thinks of this horse. And of course, he's going forward to the Constellations in Queensland in July.
He beat Merlin by 3.5. Sinbad brave in third. Sooner the better was big. He ran fourth.
That was a good hit out.
Lovely, Greg, yeah, and it was just sort of nice, probably, just did that little bit of work early, found a good spot, but he's such a little opportunist, you can drive him however you see fit, and it was a great run, had the plugs still in, and yeah, it was just a lovely hit out for him.
Right, it's going to be a good battle next week with Merlin, because he's pretty smart.
A very, very smart horse, and his run tonight was excellent as well. Bit tough going out there, there's a bit of a headwind up that last straight, so Merlin to come out 3 wide and do that work he did, I thought he was great as well. I think a lot of it will come down to draws as well.
Excellent dress rehearsal for next week.
Yeah, it sort of seems to go that way before the big goes with him. We look after him and he gets home really well, so I was thrilled with his run. We sort of come off the track a wee bit and he got home good. Just come to the end of it, that last sort of 50 again, but it's nothing out of the ordinary for him. I sort of wasn't too worried. Obviously next week comes down to the draws, and if we get a draw to beat the good one, Don't Stop Dreaming, we'll be right there.
All right. Well, he's a Derby winner, but if anything out on the track tonight, he looked a bit stronger.
Yeah, I think he is getting stronger. He loves a pick of grass. No, he's such a cool dude. He's so relaxed. He, like you say, he looks good. But I think as the season goes on, he should get a bit stronger to the finish in most of those races.
Yeah, well, we now know he's got an invite, of course, to the Rising Star in Brisbane, so he's got a fair bit still ahead of him. But going into next week, barrier draw is going to be crucial, but you must have a lot of confidence that you've already beaten Don't Stop Dreaming before, you can do it again.
Well, 100%. Tonight, like I said, I was happy enough just to drop in, and if things went our way and we were good enough to win it, great. But as it worked out, Natalie got the front pretty easy, and we sort of had to circumnavigate around the field, and anyone knows when you're trying to beat a horse like him, it's pretty hard to do that. So, like I said, it all comes down to draws. We've got the gate speed to cross and hold, which I think it all comes down to. So you change those runs around, could be a different story. So, like you say, we'll wait till next week.
Gee, that was a gutsy run.
Yeah, really good effort, Greg. Done well to stay patient early and got sandwiched early, but no, to make a 3 wide run like that and, nearly run Merlin back for second was a very good effort.
Another really good run from him.
Yeah, good run. Look, he had a bit of a skip, about 900 out, but look, he's pretty keen the whole way, so let's pray for a front row draw.
Yeah, well, he's a Group 1 performer, as we know, and they'll go hard, which is right up his alley.
Yeah, exactly, and he's got a little bit of gate speed, which helps him a lot, so it puts him in it. So these races probably need to be handy turning for home because they're that good of horses, so see how we go next week.
Well, I'll see how they go. They've got barrier 1, Michael Guerin, which is going to be crucial. $1.35 for Sooner the Better. Drawn out a wee bit. Triple G's also drawn to his inside for Team Dunn. So, yes, it's disappointing Merlin's not there. And I don't know when we'll get to see these two clash again, because Merlin going to the Rising Sun and the Derby not until December. So we might not see it too often this year anyway.
Yeah, I would suggest a couple of times, maybe the back end of the season looking at the Derby. As you said, he's going to head to the Constellations. Only a hoof abscess, so not a major deal for Merlin, but the timing couldn't be worse. Very, very strange race that last week. One of the strangest good races I've seen in a long time, as in good horses. All the drivers on the front line just seemed to get lost. They seemed to have no idea what they were doing. They were all looking at each other and waiting for each other to go forward. And Natalie just was, as Natalie tends to do, just went, oh, stuff this. Just went forward. It was a bad race. It was full of good horses and it was a bad race. And it was a prime example of a lead-up race to a better race the week after. No one wanted a hard run, no surprises. The one person who actually did move was Blair Orange, and that's why he's the leading driver in the country. I thought it was a race, Greg, that every driver should watch again and go to themselves, what was I doing there? People sitting inside each other, looking this way and looking that way, worrying what their mates are doing around them, it was just a shit race, Greg. And it was. And it was because if we're going to hold those sort of races, one of the things I do with people in the paper and on television and radio is someone said, this is a lead-up race. Yep. But it's got to the stage now where lead-up races often, not always, because some of the Northern Open class racing has been really good. The lead-up race to the race by Grins was fantastic. But that was driven like we're all scared of the outside two horses, and everybody forgot to drive their own horse. Yep. They were waiting for someone else to tell them what to do. So we all make mistakes, Greg. I have days where I'm bad on television or bad on radio, whatever. And that was a case of a lot of our drivers not making decisions, which is what they're paid to do.
Yep, right. What happens this week then?
Oh, I think he'll win. I think Don't Stop Dreaming will win because I think he's the best of the 3-year-olds, by not much over Merlin, but I still think he's the best of them. And Merlin's not there. And the gap to the rest is pretty big. I mean, Sherlock's not there either. And I think he might be the third best. I'm not saying he is, but he's...
So does he just roll forward, take the lead off sooner the better, and it becomes a shit race
I'm not sure what sooner the better gets it. I think he does.
Yeah.
And even that's okay. I don't mind formulaic racing. What I don't like is when everybody just forgets to go off the gate and just dawdles around. There were horses 3 and 4 wide here, but just sat 3 and 4 wide. I actually thought it was a false start. After about 400 metres, I was like, what is going on here? I cannot remember many races that badly driven by as many people, which is why 2 of the best drivers in the country, actually 3 of the best in the country, in first, second and third. So I think sooner the better will probably hold Triple G. I don't know that for sure because Triple G's relatively unexposed at this level. He's only had the 5 starts. But I think sooner the better probably holds. And do I think he hands up? Absolutely. He's handed up every other time he's been in a major race. And then I think Don't Stop Dreaming will win, and I think sooner the better, who opened 2.2 for top 3 and 1.8 for top 4, is a very good bet. The one horse I did like last week out of the race was Captain Tom. I thought he was really good because I think the first time he came to Addington he got a bit lost and didn't really know what to do. But I think he's a pretty good horse. I think he's not going to win this week, I wouldn't think, but I think this experience is going to be really good for him heading forward to that Derby, which is, it feels like about 3 years away, Greg.
Yeah, it really does. The Sire Stakes is always a great race with Garrards. Here is an example of one of those. We'd like to go back and take one in. Here was Have Faith in Me, who obviously went on and won a Miracle Mile. Michael booming down the outside. Huey Green got very tired there and jumped to the inside of the track, hugged the wind, stormed home. Ultra Orlando. It was just a great final, wasn't it? And you know, these types of horses, and when you go through the record book of Ultimate Machete and Chase Auckland and Ultimate Sniper and even Franco Indy, the last time we ran this Sire Stakes, because of course we didn't run it last year with the change of horse birthday, it was Tim Williams, a young looking Tim Williams there, first Group 1 from memory as well, so a great performance there by Have Faith in Me. Right, let's move on to another of the features on Friday night. It is the Heather Williams Memorial, brought to you by Haras de Trotteurs. This was last year, Michael, and I Dream of Jeannie in the trail there, driven by Mark Purdon on this occasion, bursts through and gets the job done. She's been in terrific form. She is a winner of the About Now a couple of weeks ago, and the mobile conditions of this race will suit her down to the ground, as they will with time up the hill. And Paramount Empress, who's done very little wrong, including that second behind Matua Tana last week, draws inside the big 2, if you like, Miss Alyssa to their outside. So this should be one heck of a contest.
Yeah, good race, and named after a lovely lady, so lovely to see a race named after Heather. I think I Dream of Jenny's a pretty good horse, but I don't know how good Paramount Empress is. I think she's pretty good, so really interesting race to see who takes control of the race and whether a Paramount Empress is driven like the best horse or whether she's still too new to be driven that way, Greg. But yeah, I thought a fitting race and a very evenly balanced race.
Yeah, well, Lex will be there with his family, so we look forward to seeing them on track. And of course, I Dream of Jeannie has won 5 races since winning that last year, so doing a great job for Sam Smolensky. Let's move on to the Avon City Ford Welcome Stakes. It's the 6th on the program, and a first up win for Bronson. Came to the track last week, was a pretty warm favourite, drew the outside. Didn't get there by a whole lot, Michael, but Mickey's courage is good getting through on the inside, albeit a little bit green. This one by Vincent, owned by Jean Feast, out of the family, of course, of her star pacer in Self Assured. So Bronson first up. Thought he was pretty brave. He takes on Vegas Strip and Major Hot. And while we are recording this on a Wednesday morning at this stage, Natalie Rasmussen was still undecided between Vegas Strip and Bronson. She was working Bronson this morning to decide which way she will go, Michael. The bookies have Major Hot at $2.50, already been placed a couple of times at group level behind Vesem. And then you've obviously got Bronson $3.50, $5 for Vegas Strip, who I thought on debut was excellent.
Yeah, really nice horse. Trialled really well, has natural speed, Vegas Strip, but gee, it's hard to go down there and take on the Southerners at this game on their home track. This is an important horse for Vincent. Vincent's had a really, really good run with it in Australia, and he's been okay here in New Zealand, like just okay. He had some really early promise with horses like Sevi and those coming through, and he needs another 1 or 2 good horses, Greg, because over the winter, the next 3 or 4 months is when people decide what stallion their mare's going to, and he needs a couple of good ones, and I think he's got them. So, yeah, success here for a horse like him, and any sort of wins in the next couple of months for horses like him or Vesem or other horses coming through the system, Greg, really important for Vincent. It's really easy for these harness stallions to fall off the market really quickly because obviously with transported semen, everybody can go to whatever horse they want, more or less. Yeah, so I think if he wins this week and what we've seen earlier in the season, we could see a renaissance in that difficult 3rd, 4th crop period for Vincent.
Yeah, looking forward to the 80th running of the Avon City Ford Welcome Stakes and the Hydroflow Country Cups final for $90,000 as the final race we'll preview on the premiere night. Here's a couple of performers through this terrific series, Michael. Here's Franco Norton, having a few problems with him tie-up wise, but that's nothing unusual, talking to Stephen McRae about that. He's a really good horse. He beat One Change on this occasion. See Art back on the inside, and he has to come off the 20 metres, and he was down to start last time and had to be scratched because of those tie-up problems. And if he had won, he would have gone back another 10 metres. So it could work in his favour, although he's come up $3.50, and a horse with issues coming off a back mark at Addington's not normally a formula that I would use. I'd use it for this horse though. He's a really good stayer. His name is Wheels of Fortune. He's trained and driven by John Hay. He's been excellent in his career thus far, winning half of his 12 starts. He went into the Derby last December. That's how highly John rated him. He starts off the 10 metres, so he gets an advantage over the likes of Franco Norton and Homebush Lad and Mighty Louie and the likes, but I like him. He's a big, strong stayer, Michael, and I could see him in the IRT New Zealand Cup later in the year if he keeps progressing the way I think he might.
Yeah, on Franco Norton, went to the trials last week, so he actually performed really well at Ashburton last week. So I think he'll be fit enough, but so much here depends, Greg, on what the front markers do, and it's a big, bulky front line. If they step, and these horses we've seen for the last couple of seasons, this grade of horse can go 4 minutes for 2 miles. If they do that, Greg, Franco Norton could be in a world of pain. If they go 4-5, which I don't think they'll do, then he might be able to win. It's just, no matter how good they are, it just depends, Greg, on what the horses around them do, because if they get strung out and the leaders step and run really hard, Franco Norton could be 30 lengths from the leaders. Or a couple of gallopers off the front line and he's 5 back to the outside. It's a totally different race. So I love the race. I think it's a good old-fashioned 2-mile standing start. It's got that real country cups feel to it. Who's going to win? I have absolutely no idea. But that market will also move around enormously, Greg, in the last 5 minutes of betting. Once, the bigger market starts to play and exchanges and things start to get involved, this market will change exponentially. So I wouldn't be jumping into the 3.5 Franco.
All right, $3.50 for him, $6 for Wheels of Fortune, $6.50 Sire Art, who is one of those horses off the front, so has a good advantage there. And Cause I Can, I don't think it was too bad, with a little bit more luck this week, might have a part to play too. So a brilliant night at Addington Raceway on Friday night, first there of 10 at 5:26. Wanted to go to Cambridge though, Michael, because they've got a couple of good races. Here's Sparky winning off the speed. Thought it was a really good run from it. That's in the dun colours. Crystal Hackett doing the driving down the outside. Really strong run. I know you're probably going to find one to beat it. Its normal modus was to be in front, which was the case on Grins night when it got run down, but coming from off the speed, excellent there. It's drawn right beside your horse from last week, Ideal Dream. Are you thinking it can win again?
No, I think Ideal Dream's lack of gate speed could be a factor. It was a bit unlucky last week. It had to pull out at the 1200 and sit parked for the last lap. But no, I like Sparky too. I thought it would be the horse to beat. Has more tactical speed if they choose to drive it that way. Junior drivers race, and in a junior drivers race, someone like Crystal, who drives in open races quite often, is a big advantage. But yes, I do think Ideal Dream can win, but I think it doesn't have that change-up speed, so it needs the speed to be on in its races, and this doesn't have the feel of that type of race. Sparkle around Cambridge seems to be very happy, seems to enjoy Cambridge racing, so no reason to think it couldn't win 2 or 3 more over the winter. Just if you stay in that grade in Cambridge, Greg, often that's pretty much the same horses. And with the preferential barrier, George, you just go from a good barrier to a bad barrier, and now it can be driven off the speed. It has 2 ways of winning races.
So that's Sparky as opposed to Sparkle.
Sparky, my
Did you
apologies,
like
Sparky.
Sparkles when you were a kid? What was your go-to lolly?
I loved lollies, but because there were so many kids in our family, we couldn't afford them. So when I started my paper round when I was 9, I used to spend my $2, which my brother Barry gave me, going to buy a big bag of lollies, Greg. And back then, $2 would get you
a lot of lollies.
Yes,
absolutely.
But at our house, because there were so many kids, we used to hide them. So you hid them under your bed or under your mattress, because if the rest of the family found them, they disappeared very quickly.
So like fish and chip night, when it was there, would be like seagulls, like big old
a lot of seagulls. Seagulls walking around on their back legs. It was vicious at our house on the food thing. No one ever answered the phone when people were eating, because if you did, your food wouldn't be there when you get back.
Another stories for another day. I'm sure we can spend a lot of time on that. Ashburton race on Sunday. We'll go to the last race to have a look at Brie Express, and this was a really good run from Brie Express, trained by Steve Dolan. Got the job done with Devon Van Til, did a power of work early, second 2 at Sky Vale. She's not a bad mare, so this was a strong run. Second row draw on Sunday. Woodley Jewel was a good winner last Sunday as well. Straight flush returns to the track and double down. I don't mind as a horse either. Drawn right alongside Brie Express's Tiger Taylor, so yeah, I reckon she's a handy enough mare. She's actually raced by JC International, which are great supporters through Harness Link of the show. So, yeah, I hope she races well, and I think she will even off the second row. All right, Terry Schmiel, you might be wondering what he's up to, where he's been, and what his family's up to, because I've got a big occasion coming up, and I got a chance to have a chat to him about that at Addington Raceway last Friday. What are you up to these days? Because we don't see you that often on track.
No, I'm sort of working with farmlands now, just saying a different role. I was meant to go to Aussie, but the kids were too important, Greg, so the job wasn't, the kids were more important than the job, so I stayed here. So I'm working with farmlands and just doing a wee bit of driving, just having a bit of time out and enjoying it. Yeah, well, you've been involved in the game all your life, and speaking of the kids, one of them, Hope Schmiel, she can swim a wee bit. Yeah, she's going really good, Greg. She's been selected 3 times for the New Zealand teams, and she's away to Trinidad and Tobago for the Junior Commonwealth Games, and she's in the Tri-Series against Aussie as well, so she's going pretty good. So yeah, now, look, it's not a cheap thing to do, so you guys are putting together a fundraising night out at the Springer. Yeah, well, there's no sort of funding for swimming, and you got to do it yourself, so it's pretty expensive sport if you can get good, Greg. So she's travelling over there. So we're putting a fundraiser on the 7th of June. Just sort of want to get people behind us and anything to auction off or any raffles and that. So it'll be quite a good night.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Joe and the team are putting it together. So what is it, a quiz night or what are you doing?
It's a bingo night, but the auction as well. And she's organised, I think, jerseys from the Crusaders signed and a few other things. So we're just going around just trying to get a bit of sponsorship to get her over there. It costs about $12,000 to get her there. So it's quite a bit of funding to get her there.
Yeah, well, this game's all about supporting its own, so I'm sure people will get behind that. And if they want to get hold of you, best place to go, HRNZ, all your details are on there.
Yeah, ring me anytime. Anything will help, get her along there. So, it's expensive and it'd be good to get a bit of help and backing behind her.
All right, great to catch up with you. Please wish her all the best because I know she's done a great job for the family and I'm sure she's going to do it for the country as well. And nice to catch up with you, mate.
Oh, thanks very much, Greg. Cheers.
In your home straight, in your box seat, yes, brought to you by our stabler sponsor. Just back to Terry Schmiel, and I'll bring you in here, Michael. His daughter Hope, she's going to the Junior Commonwealth Games. She's done an enormous job swimming-wise, and I know he and Glennis are very proud of Hope. So if you can help them out, they've got their fundraising night at the Springer, which is a bit of an iconic bar here in Christchurch. So get in behind it. But I know families and supporting of harness racing people, they love that sort of story. So if we can help Hope out, she needs about $12,000 to travel to the Junior Commonwealth Games, and who knows, she might end up at the big games one day.
Yeah, well done to her. Shows a lot of dedication, and her parents are both wonderful people, very hard-working people, Greg. And look, it's not unfamiliar stories for harness racing people or racing people in general to have children who are successful in sport. And one of the reasons is they're taught very early about work ethic. For all racing people's faults, Greg, one thing they can do is work. There's not many lazy people who stick around in racing for a long time. And a lot of the children who come through those families know about hard work and know about getting up early in the morning and know about physical preparation and know about getting things right. Because in racing, if you don't get things right, then you don't get any results. So it's not an uncommon story. Really interesting to hear about Hope, and good luck to her. That's a pretty big deal in someone's life. So, yep, if you back a winner or you get a chance to support them at the Springer, I'm sure it'll be a good bit of fun.
Yep, certainly will be. As it was last Saturday night at Menangle, let's have a look at Bondi Lockdown. Getting the job done against the old bloke, Alta Orlando. Cash and Flow was in here. Of course, this horse is a brilliant racehorse, a Derby winner, placed in a Chariots behind Better Eclipse. He was pretty brave here, Michael.
Look, it came from the outside of the gate. This is a lead-up race for him. Something we don't see very often. Amanda Turnbull to the inside was driving for Belinda McCarthy. Obviously, drivers' colours very much in vogue these days in New South Wales. It came in with COVID because they didn't want the drivers swapping the colours, and it pretty much seems to have stayed. Bondi Lockdown's heading to the Queensland Carnival, and Belinda and Luke will have a huge hand there. Can't Find a Better Man, the former Southland pacer, won earlier in the night, and it'll also be heading up to the Carnival. Being a 3- and 4-year-old race, I would suggest it'll end up in the Rising Sun and be one of the favourites for the Rising Sun. But yeah, Bondi Lockdown, going to be a factor at that Carnival. The one thing I would say is he doesn't have naturally high gate speed, and that could be against him around Albion Park because it's an incredibly hard place to come from off the speed.
Yeah, it definitely is, although last year in the Sunshine Sprint, Better Eclipse was able to find the front after moving forward, but I absolutely understand what you're saying there. The Trotting Oaks had Kiwi interest in it. Rocking with Attitude was simply too good again for David Miles, now 10 from 15. You're looking, though, for the Kiwi colours of Michelle Wallace and Bernie Hackett. Just in behind them, Luke McCarthy driving Melzadale, the name of the horse. Unlucky, couldn't quite get into clear trotting air and just missed third place, Michael, and they got home in 58 and 28, which is pretty stock standard there. The Derby this week, London to a Brick from the inside draw. Melzadale to be driven by T.W. Mitchell. He's had the call up to go over and drive in the Derby, obviously rocking with attitude from 5. Yeah, it's a pretty deep sort of a race, but if she could get a little bit more luck, she could certainly finish in the top 4 again.
I think a hot speed would help her. I think it usually does for our horses over there because they race, our horses are used to distance racing in strong, big fields against older horses, whereas over there, often you'll have a horse like Rockin' with Attitude lead and be too good and run away from them. So you tend to find with the New Zealand horses when they go harder, it suits them better. Interesting, with New South Wales has put a lot of money into foundation trotting series, 2 and 3 year olds, and they're actually getting better. Early 2 and 3 year old New South Wales trotters used to just be rubbish, but they consistently race on Tuesdays, and I think, Greg, they're getting a lot better with it. So it's a real Victoria versus New South Wales clash this week in the Derby. Here's a filly we know well, Queen Delighter, owned by Tony Barron and the boys in the Deep South, and spoke to Brent Lilly about this, just smashed them. One of the quickest miles in Australasian trotting history, 1:53, winning by 19 metres. I said, where does she sit, Lil? You obviously have a horse in New Zealand who's pretty good, so where does she sit against Aldebaran Zeus? He said, I think she would be competitive in any trotting race in this part of the world or maybe in the world. So I think at some stage, Greg, I wouldn't be surprised if she returned back to New Zealand eventually to be bred from. But she does have some good races coming up in Victoria for her, including some mares only races, and then they're looking at taking her to the Queensland Inter-Dominions if she's still performing well at the back end of the season. But she's done a wonderful job.
You just got to love her, Michael. And her ears right back, like she just tries really hard every time she goes to the races, and that was a fantastic time by her, win 22 in her career. It's the Lenny the Shark this week, and well, AG's White Sox won 4 out of his last 5. Michael, any reason why he couldn't win? He takes on Supreme Dominator and Max Delight, horses that he's beaten before, so he'll be pretty hard to beat again, I'd say.
Yeah, there's a real lack of depth in open class racing in most of the eastern seaboard states at the moment. Without, the absolute big banger Emma Stewart type horses there, and with the better 3-year-old and 4-year-old horses either having breaks or waiting for the Eureka, which is on the first Saturday in September. There's a real dearth of talent, and that's not being horrible to AG's White Sox, but I mean, my God, he wouldn't win 4 out of 5 open class races in New Zealand at the moment. No. And we're seeing these, we've spoken about it before, these off-season slumps. We don't have it here because at the moment we have the Auckland Cup round the corner, but over there at the moment, there's some old warriors going around in races, Gregory.
There certainly is. Speaking of carnivals, that Constellations we keep talking about, here's some of the highlights for you. Up to 400,000 now, the Blacks are fake. The Rising Sun with that $100,000 bonus that Merlin potentially could win at 350,000. New trotting race there, the Great Square for 3 and 4 year old trotters. Bonus again if you're a 3-year-old. $100,000 Trotters Cup. That might get a few Kiwis across there, Michael. And the new race, the Hayden, which is Queensland's golden ticket into that Eureka. $3 million in prize money, 7 carnival events and those 20 group races. It's going to be a stunning carnival over there. The Derby, the Oaks, the Golden Girl. I know Manhattan's likely to head over there for that, so it's going to be an awesome carnival and a great time of year to head over there in the middle of winter. You, of course, will be at Royal Ascot with your top hat on. I won't require a top hat for that Queensland Carnival, but it's certainly building a momentum and just shows you when the government gets behind this type of thing, what you're able to achieve.
Oh, it's massive. It's one of the more calendar-changing things we've seen because people want to go to Queensland in winter because it's horrible around most of the rest of Australasia. It's perfect for a certain type of horse. It's not going to suit every horse, but Greg, I think it's a wonderful thing. Well done to Racing Queensland, to everybody involved. It's totally refocused winter when all the other states have pulled back out of winter. Breeders' crowns changed, everything else has changed. Yep, they've given winter to Queensland. It's how it should be. You still have to wonder if somewhere the Inter-Dominion being run around this time of the year wouldn't fit in better there. Now, I know the Auckland Cup's around the corner, and I'm not sure we've got that right. And I would like to see that pulled back. And I think if everybody in Australasian harness racing in May was heading to the Inter-Dominions over there. I'm not sure that's the right time, but I do think...
I don't think you're far away, though.
I think it makes more sense than... I don't think a lot of people want to go to Queensland in December, and I don't think they want to go there when there's the Derby and the Grand Prix and all that stuff, and the New Zealand Cup just being run in New Zealand. So I'm not sure we've got the calendar right, but the one thing we have got right is this carnival.
Yep, absolutely. Let's have a look at where we could go racing around New Zealand this week. Cambridge 9-race program there, 5:31. Sparky, the one we think will be pretty hard to beat in the third. Addington have a terrific night, premier night, $150,000 Group 1 Garrard Sire Stakes highlights the awesome night along with the $90,000 listed Hydroflow New Zealand Country Cups Championship, the Avon City Ford New Zealand Welcome Stakes. Winton race on Saturday, 11:45, the first of 10 there, and Sunday we race at Ashburton, 12:20. All right, the hand milking best bets. Where'd you go this week, Michael?
I think sooner the better. Top three. I don't often tip place bets, but I thought he should be about $1.50 to run top three in the Sire Stakes final, and they put up 2.2. I think that's outstanding money, and for the way I bet, I would rather back him on the marker pegs, potentially following Don't Stop Dreaming, than trying to find a winner at the same odds. I give him about a 75% chance of running top three, so the 2.2 was massive.
All right, I had to take that into Paramount Empress because that was the other market open, so we're on there. Blue Toe into Don't Stop Dreaming for Graham Hand. Michael, appreciate your efforts this week. Know you got next week off. Matt Cross will join us. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time, but bye for now. The Box Seat brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Harness Link for your worldwide harness coverage. New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred, where winning begins. Brecon Farms. Stonewall Stud. IRT, it's your horse and our passion. Australasian-wide Garrard's Horse and Hound. Renwick Farms. Lincoln Farms. Harness Racing New Zealand. And the clubs Addington, Ashburton, Alexandra Park and Cambridge.